Hello students, welcome back to Understanding Browning's Philosophy of Life. I am Madhvi Lata, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Banaras Hindu University. This is Module 8 and we have been understanding Browning's philosophy of life and his outlook on life. In lecture 1, we understood some of the features of Browning's philosophy of life, such as how Browning has explored ideas of imperfection, failure and incompleteness being crucible or as an instrument of inner growth of man's life. Let us begin with understanding some of its other features and aspects. So, the paradox of divine imperfection. Browning predominantly deals with theistic paradox. Theistic paradox wherein he introduces two contradictory ideas involving man, God and largely dealing with three aspects of life, that is psychology, philosophy and spirituality. One of Browning's most audacious ideas, as G.K. Chesterton observes, is his belief in what may be called the hope that lies in the imperfection of God. In other words, it can also be understood as the most failure is the most success, or failures are prophecies of man's success. According to Browning, divinity itself is not a fixed perfection, but a living process. So, along with man, a supreme power, divine power also continuously evolves, and it is evolving as a living process that enters into human limitation through love. Browning's theology anticipates the modern existential thinkers as he envisions God as co-sufferer and co-creator, and this can be well established by taking up the stanza from the poem Rabbi Ben Ezra, where the speaker suggests that how man acts as an agent in creation of things or objects in universe along with God or divine power. So, divine power and man together, they are like co-creator and co-sufferer, and it is well explained in the poem that we looked in previous lectures, but not as a remote omnipotence. So, this omnipotent, omnipresent and omniscient power in the form of divine power, which Browning notes largely in the present poem Rabbi Ben Ezra, it is also an evolving power that helps man, as well as it also allows him to be as an agent along with divine power. Brooke observes in the poetry of Robert Browning, Browning conceived of God not as a static absolute, but as a being revealed in ceaseless activity. So, man through continuous struggle and efforts comes closer to God, divine power, and divine power helps him in this connection or in this kinship, and whose universe, like himself, remains unfinished and alive with divine purpose. Browning's profound contribution to Victorian theology is his attempt to humanize God without diminishing his divinity. He does not portray God as an abstract omnipotence, but a participatory deity sharing the struggle of his creatures. So, one can immediately underscore that Browning's idea of projecting divinity or its gradual living process of evolvement is very different from two of his contemporary poets, Tennyson and Arnold, because for them there was no hope. For them, especially Arnold, there was no note of hope and happiness. But here Browning has given a different, altogether a different aspect of divinity which itself is going through a passage of development and growth. Then we have also this idea of Browning's philosophy of life, wherein he focuses on optimism of experience of man's life. Browning's optimism is not rational, but it is experiential. The optimism of experience. Browning's optimism is not rational, but it is experiential, as Chesterton aptly remarks. His optimism was not founded on opinions, which were the work of Browning, but on life, which was the work of God. So, Browning gives credence, importance to the process of creation of man's life. Not life as an absolute idea and entity, but it stresses on the life as a process, life as a precious gift given by divine power. So, Browning asserts that living fully is itself vindication of being. Life is inherently good, not because it is comfortable, but because it is real. So, reality is far more important than looking for goodness, comfort, completeness, and fulfillment. His optimism is grounded in sensation and experience and not in metaphysics. Browning as a poet is more concerned. He is more concerned with how sensation and experience of man's life encompass as inextricable phenomena in understanding his philosophy of life, which is not metaphysical. Both Brooke and G.K. Chesterton, they emphasize that Browning's optimism was not philosophical, but it is instinctive, and it rose from vitality of man's life. G.K. Chesterton famously wrote, he did not believe in God because the world was good. He believed that the world was good because he believed in God. So, probably here W.H. Hudson's remark fits quite well when he remarks about Robert Browning that he was an uncompromising foe of materialism. When it was an age of rapid and rampant development that came or comes along with its attendant social repercussions, there Browning stands firm and determined, remarked by Hudson as uncompromising foe of materialism, a poet who believes that life is good, not it is good because God is there, but God has made life good, that's why life is good. Browning's cheerfulness comes from his confrontation with evil and his confidence in the soul's ultimate victory. Harold Bloom calls the heroism of joy a spiritual courage that persists even when theology falters. So, Browning strongly believes in the immortality of soul, a soul which transforms body, and body is largely perishable. So, it is flesh that even the speaker in the poem Rabbi Ben Ezra also discusses, that it keeps on changing flesh, body, form, soul, and soul remains eternal and immortal. And immortality of soul is also one of the essential aspects to discuss and look at in Browning's philosophy of life. And Browning's ethical and aesthetic synthesis that he explores in his writings is also another remarkable aspect to understand his outlook on life. And Browning fuses art and morality. For him, poetry is not an ornament but a mode of revelation. And this is very much true when we take under consideration of dramatic monologue as a poetic form, because through this poetic form, the poet intends to reveal character and inner psyche of the process that the man or character thinks of. So, art and morality are well blended together, and art is immortal. Life is mortal. It is artists who may die, but their art created by them remains forever and ever, making it eternal and immortal. G.K. Chesterton calls this idea as the science of motives. Browning's verse dramatizes the soul in conflict by depicting the convergence of ethical and aesthetic. So, Browning intelligently blends these two aspects, wherein ethical and aesthetic beauty wherein ethical and aesthetic aspect are brought together to understand the art and morality. Browning's philosophy lives in the flesh of his characters, in their voices, doubts, and contradictions. His aesthetic celebrates vitality, thus his art becomes a moral arc to depict human striving as an honor divine creation. Andrea del Sarto is the best quintessential example to understand how art and morality go hand in hand, and these two become inextricable, unattachable, and these two are symbol of aesthetic and ethical sense. Browning's philosophy of life merges artistic creation, moral striving, and religious faith into one living whole. So, one can easily check that how Browning as a poet brings these three aspects. One is artistic creation, then how man continuously struggles, and man's religious faith together. And these three aspects in his poetry form or encompass a close connection, a close association. His poetry, instead of preaching a doctrine, dramatizes spiritual energy. And G.K. Chesterton rightly puts it that Browning's religion was the religion of energy, and his God is the God of motion, and his art mirrors divine vitality. So, one can again understand this aspect by taking some of the examples from Browning's poetry. For example, The Last Ride Together, Andrea del Sarto, Fra Lippo Lippi, to foreground the idea that how he fuses art and morality together. As Stafford Brooke observes, Browning's greatness lies in his power to make the spiritual visible in the human. For Harold Bloom, his originality lies in his refusal to despair and in his ability to create meaning from will, love, and imagination even when reason collapses. So, Browning's whole idea of philosophy center and revolve around how he is the one who never has despair, disappointments, or never feels discouraged. Rather, on the contrary, he always gives message to man to be always courageous, to be always firm and determined in order to understand the true meaning of life. So, when reason even seems to be failing, Browning remains firm and determined with these three aspects that he explores in his poetry. Browning's philosophy of life can be summed up as faith in life itself, wherein he portrays how even in chaos there is always a note of hope or silver lining. The divine purpose always persists, and his optimism is not escapist, but he is born from the conviction that to live, to strive, to love, and to fail are themselves sacred process. So, a man makes meaning out of his life through continuous suffering, worries, struggle, and in that moment also he understands the meaning of love, failure, success, etc. Probably here we can also bring in to understand this idea when we understand this quote, how to live is to suffer, and to survive is to find meaning in that suffering. He believed that God is in his heaven and all is right with the world. Highly inspirational, full of vitality and note that he expresses in this line, not because all was visibly right, but because the very wrongness of the world is the proof that it was still in motion and on its way to God. So, one thing which is highly conspicuous in order to understand Browning's philosophy of life, that he has absolute faith in a divine power who channelizes, who acts as an anchor, who takes care of humanity, who takes care of man. And he seems to be underscoring this idea by giving this quote that if God is in his heaven, then everything is all right with the world. Similarly, God above is great to grant gifts on the earth to man. In the end, Browning was not merely an optimist, but as G.K. Chesterton also notes, a happy man. This can be understood with the help of his personal life. Despite having a seamless conjugal life, Browning could successfully portray failures, unfulfillment, moment of passion in his love poems. And we have many examples that we just understood. His happiness does not come from contentment, satisfaction, but from courage and the joy of unfinished. Rabbi Ben Ezra also explains the same idea that how man is unfinished finite clod, and this unfinished finite clod is always unperturbed and disturbed by a spark in the form of spiritual spark. His philosophy of life is neither systematic or speculative, but a living creed of becoming. That means it is a process of making, it is a process of happening, it is a process of evolving. Browning's God is the God of growth, and his man is the being who dares to grow. He turns imperfection into experience and struggle into sanctity. So he gives importance to the process of struggle, strife, and he considers it pious, pure, and sanctify it. As Brooke beautifully concluded, Browning's creed is not peace but progress, not knowledge but love, not rest but eventually life. To summarize Browning's philosophy of life with special reference to the poem that has been done in previous lectures titled Rabbi Ben Ezra, one can say that his philosophy or the philosophy in the present poem celebrates life as a spiritual journey of inner growth and development. And this inner growth and development happens, or it is a result of continuous struggle in man's life. And it springs from faith in purposefulness, lofty ideas, aspirations, ambitions, and also imperfections and incompleteness. For life's worth or real essence of life lies not in its attainment, achievement, accomplishments, but in its continuous effort and courage to aspire, to strive, and to keep becoming good. It is not of rest but of progress. With this, we end here understanding Browning's philosophy of life. I hope I have conveyed some of the important aspects of Browning's philosophy of life along with his positive and robust note of hope that he expresses in his in the poem Rabbi Ben Ezra. With this, we end here. Thank you.